Men don't misunderstand loud women. They misunderstand calm women, because when a woman stops reacting, stops explaining, and stops chasing validation, her energy becomes something men feel, but can't control. Men struggle to understand female energy that is calm, self-contained, and emotionally unattached to validation because it doesn't operate on the signals they were conditioned to read. From an early age, many men learn to interpret emotion through action and reaction. Loud emotion feels familiar. Strong pursuit feels understandable. Resistance followed by explanation feels negotiable. But calm feminine energy removes all of those markers. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't perform. It doesn't signal fear of loss or urgency to be chosen. And because it offers no obvious leverage, it unsettles men who are used to emotional feedback loops. This kind of female energy doesn't explain itself. It doesn't rush to clarify intentions. It doesn't fill silence to ease discomfort. Instead, it observes. It pauses. It lets moments breathe. To a man who expects emotional cues to guide his behavior, this can feel like ambiguity or distance, but it isn't distance, it's containment. Emotional containment is unfamiliar to many men because it removes the usual cause and effect dynamic. There's no emotional reward for pushing, no visible punishment for pulling away. The woman remains steady regardless of external fluctuation. Calm female energy also disrupts power expectations. Many men unconsciously equate emotional expression with vulnerability and vulnerability with control. When a woman expresses emotion openly, he believes he understands where he stands. When she reacts strongly, he knows he has impact. But when she remains composed, centered, and unmoved by provocation, the usual reference points disappear. He cannot measure his importance by her reaction. He cannot gauge his influence by her reaction. He cannot gauge his influence by her pursuit. This absence of measurable validation creates uncertainty, and uncertainty is often misinterpreted as disinterest or emotional coldness. What men often fail to recognize is that this coldness is not indifference. It is discernment. A woman who is emotionally unattached to validation has already resolved something internally. She has decided that her sense of worth does not rise or fall based on attention, reassurance, or approval. This internal resolution changes her posture in relationships. She no longer negotiates her boundaries through emotion. She enforces them through consistency. She doesn't threaten to leave. She simply adjusts her presence. And that adjustment speaks louder than any argument. Men also struggle with this energy because it cannot be rushed. Urgency is a familiar currency. Desire mixed with anxiety creates momentum. But calm feminine energy moves at its own pace. It doesn't accelerate to match intensity. It doesn't slow down to accommodate insecurity. It simply continues. This creates a gap between expectation and reality. A man may expect emotional escalation during conflict, closeness after tension, reassurance after distance. When none of those arrive, he is forced to confront his own emotional habits rather than manage hers. There is also a misunderstanding of softness. Calm female energy is often quiet, gentle, and restrained. Men may mistake this softness for passivity, but it is not passive. It is selective. It engages where it is respected and withdraws where it is not. It does not argue for space, it takes it. It does not demand understanding. It allows misunderstanding to reveal character. This is deeply confusing to someone who expects emotional labor as proof of care. Emotionally unattached to validation does not mean emotionally unavailable. It means emotionally sovereign. The woman still feels deeply. She still connects, but she does not outsource her emotional stability. She does not hand over responsibility for her mood, self-esteem, or peace. This autonomy shifts the relational dynamic. The man is no longer the emotional anchor. He becomes a participant. For men who derive identity from being needed, this shift can feel like displacement. This type of female energy also reflects clarity. Calmness often signals that decisions have already been made internally. There is no inner debate leaking outward, no confusion disguised as conversation, no emotional testing to see if someone will step up. When a woman has clarity, she doesn't probe. She observes alignment. And observation removes pressure while increasing accountability. A man cannot rely on charm or intensity to override inconsistency. He must meet her where she stands. Another reason men struggle is that calm energy exposes projection. When a woman does not react, the man fills the silence with his own interpretations. He may assume judgment where there is neutrality, disinterest where there is patience, superiority where there is self-respect. Without emotional cues, his internal narratives become louder. This can be uncomfortable because it forces self-reflection rather than external control. There is also a cultural component. Many relationship scripts teach that women should communicate through emotion and men through action. Calm female energy disrupts this script. It speaks through behavior rather than explanation, through consistency rather than reassurance, through presence rather than persuasion. Men who rely on verbal or emotional exchanges to feel secure may feel ungrounded when those exchanges are minimal but intentional. Importantly, this energy does not seek to be understood. It does not correct misinterpretation unless correction serves alignment. It allows misunderstanding to exist without chasing resolution. This is not avoidance. It is trust in reality. If someone misunderstands your calmness and responds poorly, that response provides information. A woman who is unattached to validation values information over approval. Men often say they want peace, but peace requires self-regulation. Calm female energy does not regulate others. It regulates itself. And when a man encounters that, he is confronted with the difference between wanting peace and being peaceful. The energy becomes a mirror. It reflects emotional maturity gaps without accusation. This reflection can create attraction or resistance, depending on readiness. This is why some men feel drawn and unsettled at the same time. They sense stability but cannot control it. They feel respect without having earned dominance. They experience space without abandonment. The usual emotional bargaining tools don't work. There's nothing to fix, nothing to chase, nothing to win. Only something to meet. And meeting this energy requires presence. It requires intention. It requires emotional honesty, not performance, not persuasion. Calm female energy does not respond to words alone. It responds to congruence, to consistency between what is said and what is done, to emotional reliability over time. Men who are used to intensity may mistake this requirement for distance, but it is actually an invitation to rise. This energy also reframes attraction. It removes desperation from desire. Interest is expressed without attachment to outcome. Connection is offered without sacrifice of self. This balance is difficult to understand if attraction has always been linked to pursuit or fear of loss. When a woman can enjoy connection and still walk away whole, it challenges assumptions about attachment, value, and power. Ultimately, men struggle not because this energy is mysterious, but because it is self-sufficient. It does not ask to be completed. It does not collapse under pressure. It does not expand to fill emotional gaps. It remains intact regardless of response. And in that intactness, it quietly communicates that love is welcome, but dependence is not. Attention is appreciated, but not required. Connection is possible, but never at the cost of inner balance. A woman's true power appears when she responds from self-respect instead of emotional urgency, because urgency leaks need, and need shifts the balance of any interaction. Emotional urgency speaks before clarity forms. It reacts before meaning settles. It tries to secure outcomes instead of observing reality. When a woman is driven by urgency, her responses are shaped by fear of loss rather than confidence in self. Men can sense this immediately, even if they can't articulate it. Urgency makes emotions louder, explanations longer, and boundaries softer. Self-respect, on the other hand, creates restraint. It slows response time. It filters reaction through values rather than impulse. A woman grounded in self-respect does not respond to be understood at all costs. She responds to remain aligned with herself. This alignment changes the tone of her words, the pace of her actions, and the weight of her silence. She does not escalate to be heard. She trusts that what is meant for her will meet her without force. Emotional urgency often shows up as over-explaining. When something feels off, the urge is to clarify immediately, to fix tension before it grows, to restore closeness as fast as possible. But in doing so, the woman gives away informational power. She reveals her fears, her hopes, her tolerance levels too quickly. Men who are emotionally observant register this as availability without boundaries, not because the woman lacks value, but because urgency makes her predictable. Responding from self-respect interrupts this pattern. Instead of reacting to discomfort, the woman allows discomfort to exist. She does not rush to soothe it. She does not assume responsibility for emotions that are not hers. This creates emotional space. And space invites reflection. A man faced with a woman who does not immediately respond to inconsistency is forced to confront his behavior without distraction. There is no emotional noise to hide behind. Self-respect also changes conflict. Emotional urgency seeks resolution above all else. It prioritizes harmony even when harmony requires self-betrayal. A woman driven by urgency may soften her truth, minimize her needs, or accept half answers just to restore peace. But self-respect does not fear tension. It understands that temporary discomfort is less costly than long-term erosion of self. When a woman responds from this place, she is willing to let misunderstandings linger rather than resolve them dishonestly. Men often mistake emotional urgency for passion. It looks intense, it looks invested, it looks like care, but intensity without stability fades quickly. Self-respect creates a quieter form of attraction, one that doesn't spike and crash, one that builds consistency. When a woman responds calmly, without chasing reassurance, her presence becomes grounding. Men feel steadied rather than stimulated, and steadiness creates trust. Another shift occurs in boundaries. Emotional urgency negotiates boundaries emotionally. It explains them, justifies them, apologizes for them. Self-respect enforces boundaries behaviorally. It does not debate them. If a line is crossed, the response is not an argument. It is a change in availability, a change in engagement. This teaches far more than words ever could. Responding from self-respect also reframes rejection. Emotional urgency experiences rejection as a threat to identity. It asks, what did I do wrong? What can I change? How do I fix this? Self-respect experiences rejection as information. It asks, is this aligned? Is this mutual? Is this sustainable? This shift removes desperation from response. A woman no longer bends to be chosen. She evaluates whether choosing is even appropriate. Men are deeply impacted by this because it removes leverage. When a woman does not react emotionally to uncertainty, the usual push-pull dynamics lose their effect. Silence is no longer punishment or protest. It is simply presence without pursuit. This unsettles men who rely on emotional reactions to feel significance. They are no longer validated by causing a reaction. They must show up consistently to remain relevant. Self-respect also changes how a woman listens. Emotional urgency listens to respond, to correct, to secure reassurance. Self-respect listens to understand patterns, to notice consistency, to observe effort over time. This observational stance allows a woman to respond accurately instead of emotionally. Her responses become shorter, clearer, and more deliberate. Men often feel this as maturity, even if they can't name it. Importantly, responding from self-respect does not mean suppressing emotion. It means choosing when and where emotion is expressed. It means emotions serve communication, not control. A woman can still be warm, affectionate, expressive, but those expressions come from fullness, not fear, from choice, not compulsion. Men feel the difference immediately. One feels heavy, the other feels clean. Emotional urgency often collapses timelines. Everything feels immediate. Answers are needed now. Decisions must be made now. Clarity is demanded now. Self-respect allows time to reveal truth. It understands that consistency cannot be rushed, that character is shown over repetition, not reaction. When a woman responds slowly, she gives reality room to speak. Men who encounter this energy often slow down themselves, not because they are manipulated, but because the environment has changed. There is no pressure to perform emotionally, no need to reassure constantly. The interaction becomes simpler, cleaner, more honest. And honesty is where real attraction forms. Responding from self-respect also protects a woman from overinvestment. Emotional urgency invests before evidence. It commits emotionally before commitment is demonstrated. Self-respect waits. It matches energy. It mirrors effort. This balance prevents resentment. A woman no longer feels taken for granted because she does not give beyond what is met. This is where true feminine power becomes visible, not in control, not in persuasion, not in emotional intensity, but in regulation, in the ability to remain centered regardless of outcome. Men sense when a woman will be okay with or without them, and that sense shifts the dynamic. She's no longer trying to hold the relationship together. She's evaluating whether it deserves to exist. When a woman responds from self-respect, she does not abandon herself to maintain connection. She understands that any connection requiring self-abandonment is already lost. This understanding changes everything about how she speaks, pauses, engages, and disengages. Her responses become reflections of inner stability rather than reactions to external behavior. Men may initially feel challenged by this. Some will pull away. Some will step up. But none will remain unchanged. Because self-respect is not wowed, but it is firm. It does not argue its worth. It demonstrates it through consistency, through calmness, through the absence of urgency. And in that absence, something powerful emerges. A presence that does not chase, does not plead, does not demand, but quietly communicates that connection is a choice, not a necessity, that love is an addition, not a requirement, and that respect is not negotiated, it is either met or it is not.